My name is John Dawson, and today I'm going to demonstrate how I do a color etching. I'm going to start today by showing you some of the materials that I'll be using in order to produce a color etching. The first thing we'll have are two unetched zinc plates like this. The paper I'll be using is BFK Reeves BFK Cream. I'll be using two stencils that I've made in order to paint in the color. This is the first one, and this is the second one. I'll be using ordinary oil paint, which I'll mix and then paint in to the stencils. And last but not least, we have the key plate. And the key plate will be printed with Vine Black etching ink. The key plate, printed by itself without any color, will look like this. I'm going to begin by mixing paint. As I said before, I'm going to be using just ordinary oil paint. I'm going to mix three colors. The first will be an orange, the second will be a light green color, and the third is going to be gray. Next, I'll be placing the stencil over the unetched zinc plate. On this first stencil, we'll be painting in the green and the gray. On the second unetched plate, we will be painting in the orange. I have a sheet of Mylar on the press bed that is already marked for the registration of the plates. We're placing the first plate on the press bed, then placing the paper on top of the first plate. This paper is not been soaked. It's not necessary because we did the plate with the oil paint. I'm going to tape down the paper at one end. Then we're going to be running this through the press. Once we have finished running the first plate through the press, then pull the paper up. It will stay in place because it's taped at one end. And we'll be replacing the first plate, the orange plate, with the green plate. Once the green plate is in place, then we put the paper back over it, put the blankets back on top, and run it through the press the other way. Remove the tape, and now we have three colors printed on one piece of paper. The next step in this project is to print the key plate. As I mentioned before, this is the key plate. We're going to ink this up and print it on top of what we had just previously printed. Inking the key plate is next. It's not a very hard thing to do, but it's very time-consuming and laborious. First, you have to cover the entire plate with the ink. Then you take little pieces of mat board and scrape the ink off. Then the next step is to take a special kind of rag called a tarlatan that's just really for printmakers. Wipe the plate down. Then to take cheesecloth and polish the plate. And then the final step is to take pieces of newsprint and polish the plate further. Usually the newsprint is pieces of pages from a phone book. I have a third stencil, which I neglected to show in the beginning, that goes over the key plate. This stencil will be painted, the areas will be painted red and purple. And this will print right along with the black of the key plate. Printing the key plate requires that we soak the paper. This is the paper that we have already pre-printed the 2 or 3 colors on. Once the paper has been soaked, it needs to be soaked about 30 minutes. It needs to be blotted dry. When it's blotted dry, it'll still be damp, but it won't be shiny and wet. Now we place the key plate on the press. Once again, I have the Mylar marked so that we can get a proper registration. The registration for this particular process is a little bit different. Because the first 2 steps we did not soak the paper, and then for the last step we have to soak the paper. The paper changes its size slightly, so it requires a certain amount of trial and error in order to get the proper registration. And now we have a finished print. The last step is to place the damp print between 2 pieces of pegboard and newsprint in order to cause it to dry flat.